The capture. Mira's head throbbed as she opened her eyes, her vision blurry and her throat dry. The air smelled metallic, cold, and sterile. She blinked a few times, trying to focus, but the room around her felt alien. Literally, smooth black walls pulsed faintly with an eerie blue glow, and the floor beneath her was freezing. She tried to move, but her wrists and ankles were restrained by glowing cuffs attached to a chair. The cuffs weren't made of metal or rope. They were made of pure energy. Every time she pulled, they tightened, sending small shocks through her body. Her mind raced as the memories came flooding back. She had been flying her fighter jet during a skirmish with the Zorak fleet, a species known across the galaxy for their ruthlessness. The Zorak were the ultimate predators, taking no prisoners and leaving no survivors. Mira's squad had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The last thing she remembered was her jet spiraling out of control, the cockpit filling with smoke as her enemy's lasers tore through her shields. She had been captured. Mira took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She was trained for situations like this, but training couldn't prepare anyone for the real thing. Her heart pounded as she scanned the room. There was no way out. No doors, no windows, just the faint hum of the walls and her own breathing. Then she heard it, the sound of footsteps. Heavy, metallic footsteps that echoed with a slow, deliberate rhythm. Her stomach tightened. They were coming. The wall in front of her shifted, melting away to reveal a tall figure. It was a Zorak, but it wasn't like the one she had seen in battle. This one was enormous, almost 7 feet tall, its body covered in thick, gray armor that seemed to be part of its skin. Its eyes glowed a deep crimson, and its mouth was a jagged slit filled with sharp teeth. Mira braced herself. She expected it to snarl, to gloat, to inflict pain. That's what the Zorak were known for. Instead, it tilted its head, studying her like a scientist observing a rare specimen. "You are different," it said in a deep mechanical voice. The words weren't in English, but Mira's translator implant automatically converted the alien language. She didn't respond. She wouldn't give it the satisfaction. The Zorak stepped closer, its glowing eyes narrowing. "Humans," it muttered, almost to itself. "You were not what we expected." Mira's fear was quickly replaced by confusion. Not what they expected. What did that mean? She stared at the creature, trying to read its expression, but its face was impossible to interpret. The Zorak raised one clawed hand, and Mira instinctively flinched, expecting pain. But instead of striking her, the alien placed its hand on a glowing panel on the wall. Symbols appeared on the surface, alien symbols that shifted and pulsed like living creatures. Mira couldn't understand them, but something about them felt familiar. It was as if they were trying to speak to her, whispering just beyond her comprehension. "You hold the key," the Zorak said, its voice softer this time. "The key to survival. Our survival." Mira's confusion deepened. This wasn't an interrogation. This wasn't torture. This was something else. "Let me go," she said, her voice firm. "I don't know what you're talking about." The Zorak ignored her. It turned and began to leave, but before it stepped through the wall, it spoke one final sentence. "You will understand soon enough." The wall closed behind it, and Mira was left alone again. For a moment, she simply sat there, trying to process what had just happened. The Zorak were supposed to be merciless warriors, yet this one hadn't harmed her. It hadn't even threatened her. Instead, it had spoken in riddles about survival and keys. None of it made sense. Her eyes drifted back to the glowing symbols on the wall. They were still there, still pulsing faintly. She stared at them, and as she did, she felt something strange, a connection. It was like the symbols were alive, reaching out to her, trying to tell her something. Suddenly, one of the symbols changed. It shifted and rearranged itself into a shape she recognized. A star. Not just any star, but the emblem of her squadron. Her heart skipped a beat. What was going on? Before she could think further, The wall melted open again. This time, two more Zeruk entered, each holding a strange cylindrical device. They approached her, and Mira tensed, expecting the worst. But instead of attacking, they pointed the devices at her cuffs. The glowing restraints flickered and disappeared, freeing her. One of the Zeruk gestured for her to stand. "Follow," it commanded. Mira hesitated. Every instinct told her to fight, to run, to resist. But she was unarmed, surrounded, and still reeling from the strange interaction with the first Zeruk. For now, she decided to comply. As she stepped into the corridor, the walls pulsing faintly around her, Mira felt a growing sense of dread. She had no idea what the Zeruk wanted, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just about her. It was about something much bigger. And whatever it was, she wasn't ready for it. The revelation. Mira walked through the dimly lit corridors of the Zeruk ship, flanked by her two towering captors. The air was thick with an electric hum, and the walls seemed alive, pulsing with a strange energy that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. She tried to memorize her surroundings, but everything looked the same: smooth black surfaces, glowing symbols, and no visible exits. Her mind raced with questions. Why had they freed her? Why were they speaking of survival? And what did they mean by the key? The Zeruk led her into a large chamber, far different from the cold, sterile cell she had been in before. This room was vast and circular, with a high ceiling that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by floating holographic screens. The images displayed alien landscapes, fleets of ships, and what appeared to be schematics of advanced technology. Mira's breath caught when she saw one of the holograms. It was Earth, surrounded by red markers that pulsed ominously. A group of Zeruk stood around the platform, their armor gleaming under the faint blue light. One of them, larger and more imposing than the rest, turned as Mira entered. Its eyes glowed brighter than the others, and its movements were slow and deliberate. This was clearly their leader. "Human," the leader said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "Do you know why you are here?" Mira folded her arms, masking her fear with defiance. "No, and I don't care. If you think you can use me against my people, you're wasting your time." The Zeruk leader tilted its head, studying her as if her reaction were a puzzle. "You misunderstand. We could not bring you here to destroy your people. We brought you here to save them." Mira's eyes narrowed. "Save them? From what? You?" The Zeruk leader's gaze shifted to one of the holographic screens. It gestured with a clawed hand, and the image of Earth grew larger. "Your world is in danger. As are we. A greater threat looms, a force that neither of us can defeat alone." The hologram changed, showing a massive fleet of sleek, metallic ships. These ships were unlike anything Mira had ever seen. Their surfaces shifted like liquid metal, and their shapes were almost organic, as if they were alive. They moved with eerie precision, forming a perfect formation as they approached a planet. The next moment, the planet disappeared in a blinding explosion. Mira's stomach dropped. What is that?" she whispered. "They are the Krine," the leader said. "A race of machines. Perfect. Relentless. They consume everything in their path, leaving nothing behind. They are coming for us, and they are coming for you." Mira stared at the image, her mind struggling to grasp the scale of the destruction. "Why should I believe you? For all I know, this is some trick to get me to help you." The Zeruk leader's eyes locked onto hers. "Believe what you wish, but the Krine have no allegiance, no mercy. They see all organic life as a flaw to be corrected. We have fought them for centuries, and we have always lost. Your world will be next." The room fell silent. Mira could feel the weight of the Zeruk's words, but she wasn't ready to trust them. These were the same creatures that had destroyed her squadron, that had captured her and brought her to this ship. And now they were asking for her help. "Why me?" she asked finally. "You have an entire fleet. What could I possibly do?" The Zarak leader gestured to another hologram. This one showed strange symbols, the same ones Mira had seen in her cell. They twisted and shifted, forming patterns that seemed almost alive. "You are special, human," the leader said. "Your kind has something we do not. Something the Crying fear. We call it the Source. It is an energy, a force that flows through your people, though most of you do not realize it. You, however, are different. You have touched it." Mira frowned. "The Source? I don't know what you're talking about." The leader leaned closer, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You will. It is inside you, waiting to be awakened. With it, you can stop the Crying. Without it, all will be lost." Mira shook her head, taking a step back. "This is insane. I'm just a pilot. I don't have any special powers." The Zarak leader straightened, its expression unreadable. "You will see the truth soon enough. For now, you must choose. Help us, and we will fight alongside you to stop the Crying. Refuse, and your world will fall, just as countless others have before it." The hologram shifted again, showing Earth from space. Red markers began to spread across its surface, like a disease. The sight sent a chill down Mira's spine. The Zarak leader turned away, its voice cold and final. "Take her to the observation deck. Let her see what is coming." Two Zarak guards grabbed Mira by the arms, pulling her out of the chamber. She didn't resist, but her mind was spinning. Could the Zarak be telling the truth? And if they were, what could she possibly do to stop an enemy like the Crying? As she was led down another long corridor, Mira glanced at the glowing symbols on the walls. For a brief moment, she thought she saw them shift again, forming the shape of a star, her squadron's emblem. The feeling of dread grew stronger. Whatever was happening, it was far bigger than she could have imagined, and she wasn't sure she was ready for it. The Alliance. Mira's boots clanged softly against the metallic floor as the Zarak guards led her into the observation deck. The room was enormous, with walls of transparent material that revealed the vastness of space outside. Stars glittered like distant diamonds, but Mira's attention was drawn to the planet hanging in the void below. Earth. Her home looked fragile, like a blue-green marble suspended in darkness. Seeing it from this distance filled her with a mix of awe and dread. The Zarak weren't lying. Earth was clearly in their sights. But were they here to protect it or destroy it? One of the Zarak guards tapped a control panel, and a new hologram appeared in the air in front of Mira. It showed the Crying fleet, their sleek, liquid-like ships spreading across the galaxy. Planets fell one after another, consumed by the enemy. The devastation was absolute, leaving only silence and ash in their wake. "This is what you face," a familiar voice said. Mira turned to see the Zarak leader entering the room. It moved with the grace of a predator, every step deliberate. Its glowing red eyes locked onto her as it approached. "You said humans are special," Mira said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "That we have something called the Source. What does that even mean? Why do you think I have it?" The Zarak leader gestured to another hologram, this one showing Mira's fighter jet from the battle. The footage was from the Zarak's perspective, capturing the moment Mira's ship had been hit and started to fall. But then the image zoomed in, showing something Mira hadn't noticed before, a faint golden glow surrounding her cockpit as the ship spiraled out of control. "You survived an attack that would have killed any other pilot," the leader said. "Your craft was destroyed, yet you emerged with barely a scratch. That was not luck. That was the Source." Mira frowned, her mind racing. She had always dismissed her survival as sheer luck, a miracle in the chaos of war. But now, the Zarak were telling her it was something more. She wasn't sure she could believe them, but the evidence was hard to ignore. "Even if what you're saying is true," she said, "I don't know how to use this Source. I don't even know what it is." The Zarak leader stepped closer, towering over her. "The Source is a force that flows through all living things, but humans have a unique connection to it. It is power, but it is also life itself. You may not know how to wield it yet, but it is there, and we can help you unlock it. Mira crossed her arms, skepticism clear on her face. Why would you help me? You're Zorak. Your kind has been killing mine for decades. The leader's glowing eyes dimmed slightly, almost as if it were expressing regret. We did what we thought was necessary for our survival. But the Kryn are a threat to all life, Zorak and human alike. If we do not stand together, we will all perish. Mira stared at the alien, trying to read its intentions. She wanted to believe it was lying, that this was all some elaborate trick. But the images of the Kryn fleet, the devastation they brought, it all felt too real. And deep down, she knew the Zorak were right about one thing. Earth couldn't fight this enemy alone. Let's say I believe you, she said cautiously. Let's say I agree to help. What exactly do you expect me to do? I'm just one person, and I don't even know where to start. The Zorak leader turned to the hologram, which shifted to show a massive structure floating in space. It looked like a weapon, its sharp edges glowing with a faint blue light. This is the catalyst, the leader explained. A weapon powerful enough to destroy the Kryn fleet, but it requires a conduit, a living being to activate it, a being with the source. Mira felt a chill run down her spine. You want me to be this conduit? The leader nodded. It is the only way. The catalyst will amplify your connection to the source, allowing you to unleash its full potential. But there is a risk. The process may consume you. Consume me. Mira's voice rose. You mean it could kill me? It is possible, the Zorak admitted. But without you, the catalyst is useless. And without the catalyst, the Kryn will destroy us all. Mira turned back to the window, staring at Earth, her home, her people. She thought of her squadron, her friends and family, everyone she had ever known. Could she really sacrifice herself to save them? Was she even capable of what the Zorak were asking? She clenched her fists, anger bubbling inside her. You're asking me to risk my life based on nothing but your word. How do I know you won't turn on us once the Kryn are gone? The Zorak leader was silent for a moment. Then it said, You don't. But ask yourself this. Is it better to take the risk, or to do nothing and watch your world burn? The room fell silent, the weight of the question hanging in the air. Mira didn't have an answer, not yet. But one thing was clear. The fate of her planet, and possibly the entire galaxy, was in her hands. The escape plan. Mira sat in the corner of a dimly lit chamber, her mind racing. The Zorak had given her time to think, but all she could feel was the suffocating pressure of their ultimatum. Help them activate the catalyst or watch Earth fall. It wasn't much of a choice, but trusting the Zorak felt like putting her life in the hands of a predator. Yet, the images of the Kryn fleet and Earth's destruction kept playing in her mind. If the Zorak were telling the truth, she might be humanity's only chance. The door to her chamber hissed open, and a smaller Zorak entered. It wasn't armored like the others. Its skin was smoother, and its eyes glowed faintly blue instead of red. It carried a small device in one hand, its claws clicking softly against the metal. Human, it said, its voice softer than the others. You must come with me. Mira frowned, standing slowly. Why? Another speech about my destiny. The Zorak ignored her sarcasm and gestured to the door. There is little time. If you wish to survive, follow. Survive. That word sent a chill through her. The Zorak were hiding something, but what? Reluctantly, Mira followed the smaller Zorak down the corridor. The ship felt even more alive now, its walls pulsing faster as if reacting to her presence. She glanced at her guide, trying to read its body language, but its alien form was impossible to decipher. After a few turns, they entered a new chamber filled with consoles and holographic displays. A group of Zorak engineers was working frantically, their claws tapping on floating panels. In the center of the room was a massive cylindrical object, glowing with the same blue energy as the walls. It hummed softly, vibrating the floor beneath her feet. "This is the core," the smaller Zerok explained. "It powers our ship and the catalyst. Without it, we are vulnerable." Mira folded her arms, suspicious. "Why are you showing me this?" The Zorok's blue eyes flickered, a hint of unease in its voice. "Because the Kryn are already here." Mira's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, already here?" A loud alarm blared, and the lights in the room dimmed. One of the engineers barked something in the Zorok language, and the smaller Zorok turned to Mira. "They have found us," it said. "A Kryn drone ship is approaching. We must leave now." Mira's pulse quickened. "Leave? What about the catalyst? What about Earth?" The Zorok grabbed her arm with surprising gentleness. "The catalyst is not ready. If we stay, we will be destroyed. Come." Before she could argue, the ship rocked violently, throwing her off balance. She grabbed onto a console to steady herself as the room filled with the sounds of alarms and shouting. A hologram appeared, showing a sleek, silver Kryn ship closing in fast. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and dozens of smaller drones swarmed around it like a hive. "Move," the smaller Zerok shouted, pulling her toward a nearby exit. Mira followed, her mind racing. The Zorok ship was under attack, and if the Kryn got their hands on the core, or her, Earth's fate would be sealed. As they ran through the corridors, the ship shook again, this time harder. Sparks rained down from the ceiling, and the walls began to crack under the strain. "Where are we going?" she shouted over the noise. "To an escape vessel," the Zorok replied. "We cannot fight them here. Not yet." As they rounded a corner, Mira caught sight of several Zerok soldiers holding their ground against a swarm of Kryn drones. The drones were terrifying. Sleek, spider-like machines with razor-sharp legs and glowing red eyes. They moved with unnerving precision, tearing through the Zorok warriors as if they were paper. One of the drones turned toward Mira and charged. She froze, her body refusing to move as the deadly machine closed in. But before it could reach her, the smaller Zerok stepped in front of her, raising the device it had been carrying. A burst of blue energy shot out, striking the drone and sending it crashing to the floor in a smoking heap. "Stay close," it said, its tone firm but urgent. They continued running, weaving through the chaos as the Kryn tore through the ship. The Zerok's words echoed in Mira's mind. "A catalyst is not ready. If they couldn't activate the weapon, how could they possibly fight the Kryn? And why did the Zerok seem so desperate to protect her, even at the cost of their own lives?" Finally, they'd reached a hangar bay. Several small, sleek ships were docked inside, their engines glowing faintly. The smaller Zerok led Mira to one of them, its movements hurried. "Get in," it ordered, motioning to the cockpit. Mira hesitated. What about the others? What about the core? The Zerok shook its head. "The core cannot be saved. The others will fight to buy us time. You are more important." Mira clenched her fists, anger and frustration bubbling inside her. She hated feeling powerless, hated leaving others behind. But as the sounds of battle grew closer, she realized she had no choice. She climbed into the cockpit, the Zerok following her. The ship's controls lit up, responding instantly to the alien's touch. The hangar doors began to open, revealing the vastness of space beyond. As the ship lifted off, Mira glanced back at the Zerok vessel. It was in flames, swarmed by Kryn drones. A part of her wanted to stay, to fight, but she knew it would be suicide. The smaller Zerok turned to her, its blue eyes glowing faintly. "This is only the beginning. The Kryn will not stop until everything is gone. You must be ready." Mira stared out the viewport, her heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. Earth's survival now depended on her, and she had no idea if she was strong enough to save it. The hidden truth. The escape ship soared through the void, leaving the burning Zerok vessel behind. Mira sat in silence, her hands gripping the armrests of her seat. The cockpit was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the faint crackle of static from the controls. Her guide, the smaller Zarak with the faint blue eyes, piloted the craft with steady precision, its clawed hands gliding over the holographic interface. Mira's mind raced. The Kryn were here. They had wiped out a Zarak fleet in minutes, and now she was stranded with a supposed ally who was keeping secrets. Her gaze flicked to the alien. It seemed focused, its glowing eyes scanning the controls. But Mira wasn't convinced of its loyalty. "You need to start talking," she said, breaking the silence. "What's really going on here? Why am I so important?" The Zarak glanced at her, but didn't answer immediately. It tapped a control panel, and the viewport darkened slightly as the ship entered a cloaking mode. The stars outside shimmered, their light distorted by the ship's field. Finally, the Zarak spoke. "The truth is more complicated than you know. The source is not just a power, it is a link, a connection between all living things, and your people are unique in how they wield it." Mira crossed her arms. "Unique? You keep saying that, but I don't feel very special." The Zarak turned to face her, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You do not understand what you are. The source flows through all humans, but in some, it is stronger. You are one of them, a conduit. You can shape the source, bend it to your will. That is why the Kryn fear you." Mira leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "If I'm so powerful, why don't I know it? Why hasn't anyone told me this before?" "Because your kind has forgotten," the Zarak said simply. "Long ago, humans understood the source. They used it to create wonders, to protect their world. But over time, you abandoned it. You turned to machines and lost your connection. Now, only fragments remain, hidden in those like you." Mira's mind raced. Could it be true? Could she really have some hidden power, some connection to this mysterious force? It sounded like something out of a myth, yet the Zarak's words struck a chord deep inside her. "Even if that's true," she said, "what good is it? I don't know how to use this power, and I don't even know if I believe you." The Zarak's expression softened, a surprising gesture for a creature so alien. "You will learn. You must. Without you, the catalyst cannot function, and the Kryn will consume everything." The ship jolted suddenly, pulling Mira out of her thoughts. Alarms blared, and the Zarak's claws flew over the controls. "What's happening?" Mira asked, gripping her seat. "The Kryn have detected us," the Zarak said, its voice tense. "They are relentless." Mira peered out the viewport and saw them. 3 sleek Kryn drones closing in fast. Their liquid-like surfaces shimmered as they moved, their glowing red eyes fixed on the ship. "We're cloaked," Mira said. "How can they see us?" "They cannot see," the Zarak replied. "They sense. The source within you calls to them." Mira's stomach dropped. "Are you saying this is my fault?" The Zarak didn't answer. It pulled the ship into a steep dive, narrowly avoiding a burst of energy from one of the drones. Mira's heart pounded as the ship twisted and turned, the Kryn in relentless pursuit. "Can't this thing fight back?" she shouted. "Weapons systems are limited," the Zarak replied. "This is an escape vessel, not a warship." Another blast rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from the control panel. The Zarak hissed something in its own language, then turned to Mira. "We cannot outrun them," it said. "There is only one option." Mira glared at it. "And what's that?" "You must tap into the source." She froze. "Are you kidding me? I don't even know how." The Zarak grabbed her hand, its claws surprisingly gentle. "You do not need to understand it. You only need to feel it. Focus on your fear, your anger, your will to survive. The source will respond." Mira's chest tightened. This was insane. She was a pilot, not some kind of mystical warrior. But as the Kryn closed in, their weapons charging, she realized she had no choice. She closed her eyes, her breath shaky. The Zarak's words echoed in her mind. Fear, anger, will to survive. She thought of Earth, of her squadron, of the billions of lives at stake. She thought of the Kryn, their cold, merciless destruction. Her fear turned to anger, and her anger became determination. A strange warmth spread through her chest, then down her arms. It was subtle at first, like the hum of an engine, but it grew stronger with every passing second. She opened her eyes, and to her shock, her hands were glowing with a faint golden light. The Zarak nodded, its eyes bright. Now, release it. Before she could second-guess herself, Mira reached for the control panel, her glowing hands hovering over the holographic interface. The golden light spread from her fingers into the ship, merging with its systems. The entire vessel began to glow, and the Kryn drones paused, as if sensing the shift. Mira didn't know what she was doing, but she didn't care. She focused on one thought: survive. The ship surged forward, a burst of golden energy erupting from its engines. The light engulfed the Kryn drones, and in an instant, they disintegrated, their liquid-like bodies evaporating into the void. Mira collapsed back into her seat, her body trembling. The glow faded from her hands, and the ship returned to normal. She looked at the Zarak, her voice barely a whisper. What just happened?" The Zarak smiled faintly, a strange, almost human expression. "You have taken the first step." Mira stared out the viewport, her mind reeling. If this was only the beginning, she wasn't sure she was ready for what came next. The final battle. The golden glow of the ship's engines dimmed, leaving the cockpit in an eerie quiet. Mira sat slumped in her seat, her breath ragged and her body trembling from the effort. She stared at her hands, the faint traces of light still flickering at her fingertips. What had she done? The power she had unleashed didn't feel like her own, yet it had responded to her thoughts, her emotions. The Zarak pilot watched her, its blue eyes glowing softly in the dim cockpit. "You have begun to awaken the source," it said, "but this is only the beginning. The Kryn will not stop until they consume it, or you." Mira swallowed hard. "You keep saying that. Why do they care so much about me? About humans?" The Zarak turned back to the controls, its expression unreadable. "The Kryn were not always our enemy. They were created by a race that came before us, a race that also wielded the source. The Kryn were designed to protect life, but over time, they evolved beyond their creators. They began to see the source as a flaw, a weakness to be eradicated." Mira frowned, her mind racing. "So they want to destroy us because we have this connection." The Zarak nodded. "You are the last race with a strong connection to the source. If they extinguish it in you, the balance of the galaxy will be lost. They will remake everything in their image, cold, mechanical, and devoid of life." Mira leaned back, her thoughts spinning. She had never asked for this. She had been a soldier, a fighter pilot, someone who fought battles she could see and understand. But now she was at the center of a war she barely comprehended, with powers she didn't know how to control. The Zarak interrupted her thoughts. "We are approaching the catalyst." Mira stared out the viewport at the stars, her mind reeling. She had gone from being a pilot to a savior to whatever she was now. But there was no fear, only a sense of purpose. "What happens now?" she asked. The Zarak bowed its head. "Now, you lead us. Together, we will heal what has been broken." Mira nodded, a faint smile on her lips. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt ready. The war was over, but her journey was just beginning. As the Zarak ship moved away from the catalyst, Mira's voice echoed in the quiet chamber, carrying the weight of her transformation. "In the end, we are more than flesh and blood. We are the choices we make, and I choose to build a better future." The screen fades to black, the faint glow of the catalyst lingering as a beacon of hope in the endless void. The unthinkable. The chamber erupted in a blinding explosion of golden light. The energy of the catalyst poured through Mira, her body trembling as she channeled its immense power. For a brief moment, She felt like she was everywhere, connected to the stars, the void, and the faint spark of life across the galaxy. It was overwhelming, yet it felt right. The Krine flagship loomed in the distance, a massive, shifting mass of liquid-like metal and glowing red eyes. It seemed to hesitate, as though sensing the change in its prey. But then it surged forward, its weapons charging for a final strike. Mira stood on the platform, her entire body glowing with golden light. She raised her hands, and the catalyst's energy flowed outward in a massive wave. The Krine drones disintegrated instantly, their metallic forms crumbling to dust. The flagship fired a beam of energy, but it was absorbed by the wave, the golden light consuming everything in its path. The Zorak in the chamber watched in awe, their glowing eyes wide as they witnessed what they had only dreamed was possible. The Krine fleet, unstoppable and merciless, was being destroyed by one human. But the power came at a cost. Mira's body felt like it was burning from the inside out, the energy overwhelming her senses. Her vision blurred, and she could hear the Zorak shouting, their voices distant and faint. The Krine flagship trembled as the golden wave hit it, its shimmering surface cracking and splitting apart. The massive ship began to collapse, its once fluid form solidifying into jagged fragments. In its final moments, it sent out a pulse, a message, before it exploded in a silent, brilliant flash. Mira fell to her knees, the light around her dimming. The catalyst's glow began to fade, its energy spent. She gasped for breath, her body trembling as she tried to hold on. The platform beneath her pulsed faintly, as though it too were struggling to survive. The smaller Zorak ran to her side, its blue eyes glowing with concern. "Mira, you must hold on. The catalyst's energy is draining you." She looked up at the alien, her face pale but determined. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice weak. The Zorak turned to the viewport, where the Krine fleet had been moments ago. The void was empty now, save for the faint remnants of the flagship's destruction. "Yes," it said quietly. "The Krine are gone." Mira managed a faint smile, relief washing over her, but she could feel her strength slipping away, the catalyst's energy still pulling at her. "I don't think I'm coming back from this," she said softly. The Zorak's expression shifted, its eyes dimming with sadness. "You have done more than anyone could have asked. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." Mira closed her eyes, the golden light around her flickering like a dying flame. She thought of Earth, of the people she had saved, and the lives she had fought to protect. She thought of her squadron, her friends, and the countless souls who would now have a chance to live. It was enough. But then, something changed. The catalyst pulsed again, stronger this time. The golden light surged back, not outward but inward, wrapping around Mira like a cocoon. The Zorak stepped back, its eyes wide in disbelief. "What is happening?" Mira whispered, her voice barely audible. "The catalyst," the Zorak murmured. "It is remaking you." Mira's body lifted off the platform, suspended in the golden light. She felt the energy flowing through her, not as a destructive force, but as something new. Her pain faded, replaced by a strange calm. The symbols around her shifted, forming patterns she could now understand. They were not just words. They were instructions, a blueprint for something greater. When the light finally dimmed, Mira stood on the platform, her body glowing faintly. She looked at her hands, which now pulsed with the same energy as the catalyst. She was no longer just human. She was something more. The Zorak approached cautiously, its voice reverent. "You have become the bridge." Mira turned to the alien, her expression calm but resolute. "The bridge. The catalyst did not consume you," it explained. "It bonded with you. You are now its living core, a link between the source and the galaxy. You can rebuild what the Krine destroyed." Mira straightened, her eyes narrowing. "I thought the catalyst was on your ship. How did it survive?" The Zorak's blue eyes flickered. "The core on the ship was a decoy. The true catalyst is hidden, far from the Krine's reach. But it is incomplete. That is why we need you. The ship slowed as it approached a massive structure floating in the void. The catalyst was unlike anything Mira had ever seen. It was enormous, a web of glowing blue energy suspended between jagged black spires. The entire structure pulsed like a heartbeat, its light faint and flickering. "What is that?" Mira whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "The catalyst," the Xerox said. "It is a weapon, yes, but also a conduit. It will amplify your connection to the source, allowing you to destroy the Krine fleet. But it requires balance. Focus. Without those, it will consume you." Mira's stomach twisted. The Xerox had hinted at the risks before, but seeing the sheer size and power of the catalyst made it real. She clenched her fists, her fear warring with her determination. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. It was about Earth, about billions of lives depending on her. The Xerox brought the ship into a docking bay, and the faint hum of the engines faded. It turned to Mira, its expression grim. "The Krine will not wait. They will detect the catalyst's activation and come to stop us. Once you begin, there will be no turning back." Mira nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "What do I need to do?" The Xerox led her out of the ship and into the heart of the catalyst. The air was charged with energy, and Mira could feel it pulsing around her, almost like it was alive. At the center of the chamber was a glowing platform, its surface covered in the same shifting symbols she had seen before. "You must step onto the platform," the Xerox said. "The catalyst will bond with you, drawing on your connection to the source. But be warned. The Krine will attack, and their forces will be relentless. You must hold your focus, no matter what." Mira hesitated, staring at the platform. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the enormity of what she was about to do. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and stepped onto the platform. The moment her feet touched the glowing surface, a surge of energy shot through her. Her vision blurred, and she felt as if she were floating, her body weightless and her mind expanding. The symbols on the platform came alive, swirling around her like a living storm. The Xerox's voice reached her through the chaos. "Focus, Mira. Control the source." Mira closed her eyes, her breath steady. She thought of Earth, of the people she was fighting to protect. She thought of her squadron, her friends, and the lives lost to the Krine. Her fear melted away, replaced by a fierce determination. The golden light within her flared, merging with the catalyst's energy. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The Krine had arrived. Mira opened her eyes, and through the energy storm, she saw the Xerox defenses struggling against the onslaught. Krine drones swarmed the chamber, their red eyes glowing with deadly intent. The Xerox fought valiantly, but the Krine's numbers were overwhelming. "Mira," the Xerox shouted, "we cannot hold them for long. You must finish this." Mira gritted her teeth, pushing the fear aside. The energy of the catalyst surged around her, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. She reached deeper into the source, letting it flow through her, and the golden light flared brighter than ever before. The Krine drones turned toward her, sensing the shift. They rushed toward the platform, their weapons charging. Mira raised her hands, and a wave of golden energy erupted from her, destroying the drones in an instant. But the Krine flagship loomed in the distance, its power dwarfing the smaller drones. Mira knew this was the final battle, and it was up to her to end it. As the catalyst reached full power, Mira felt a choice before her. She could channel the energy outward, destroying the Krine fleet, but it would take everything she had. Or she could hold back, saving herself but dooming Earth. She clenched her fists, her voice steady, as she whispered to herself, "For Earth." With one final surge, she unleashed the full power of the catalyst.